Today on Moviewallas, we talk about IFFLA Part 2. It's time for Moviewallas. Hi, this is Joe.
Hi, it's Rashmi.
And Yazdi as well.
Moviewallas is your weekly dose of film reviews, movie news, and general banter in theatres, on DVD, online streaming, or on the back of an airplane. If you love the movies, this show is for you. And if you love the movies, we're here to talk about one of our favourite pastimes in movies, which is attending film festivals, and specifically the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles. In today's podcast, I guess we're going to talk about our second day of coverage there. So we were able to attend this year for 2 days, and we were able to cover a number of films in our first podcast.
2.5 days.
Yeah, 2.5.
Okay, let's call it 3. Let's round up.
And
3 days.
And it was only a 3-day festival.
Yes.
Other than an opening night film one day before that.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, and you know, it's actually interesting that IFFLA is such a compact little festival that if you have a day or two to take out of your life, you can cover a large amount of material. And honestly, that's the way I recommend that you kind of experience these things. You know, we were fortunate enough to cover most of it. And, you know, as we said before, our podcast on IFFLA, a couple of podcasts ago, I guess, it did not disappoint.
Mm-mm.
There is so much high quality content at this film festival that, you know, I hope somebody did take us up on the offer of that we made a couple of podcasts ago, which was, you know, if you don't like it, if you see something you don't like, call us. We'll Venmo you the ticket price, because honestly, everything we saw was super.
Let's get into it.
So on this second podcast, I guess we've got just a couple of things to get through, and we are on a little bit of a time curfew here. So we hope we do these movies justice, because all of them deserve our very best attention. But we cover the shorts program, the second shorts program. We weren't able to catch the first shorts
because it was sold out.
Well, that's true. Yes, indeed. Even bravo.
Yes,
to the film
exactly.
Festival. You know, our press badges allow us to get access to things, but by the time we went to register for it, there were no seats available.
It was sold out like days in advance, like 3-4 days in advance.
And
we even tried getting in on the day, and they said, "Look, doesn't look good."
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
So we ate fried chicken instead.
Yes, very spicy.
We drowned our sorrows in fried chicken.
And I should say, of all the movies we watched, there wasn't any which was like, you know, an empty theater. All of the screenings were pretty well attended
And diverse.
And some
I loved it.
fully booked. Very diverse. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so again, we're going to talk about this short program, the second short program. So that was the final day of the film festival. They had another short program with a few movies we'll talk about, and then the documentary Defiance, which is also subtitled "Fighting the Far Right." So,
but it's in English mainly.
It's not subtitled. It's you mean subtitled as in undertitled.
Defiance :
Yeah, that's
Fighting the Far Right.
But it doesn't have subtitles as in a different language subtitles.
Oh,
correct. It's in English. It's just that it's in British English.
Could I have been more clumsy with that?
Yes, exactly.
Defiance : Fighting the Far Right, which is a documentary. So let's talk about the shorts program first, I guess.
Okay. I have the list.
A little bit of a challenge. I've got all the names written down here, but boy, it'll be short programs are great in that, you know, you get to see a lot of content in a very short period of time, pun not intended, but you also have to kind of be awake because they come at you thick and fast.
Yeah.
Each one has so many memorable qualities that you want to make sure you kind of give them justice and separate them out. So
why don't we do this? I'll read them and I'll just give a very brief description about what they're about, and then we can just talk about maybe our favorites and things that stood out to us rather than doing a full review on each one. Okay, so we had first, Are They on a Sunday? That's ADE, and then in parentheses, on a Sunday. cute little movie about two little boys having an adventure in, remind me where it was. Nagaland, which is, I'd never heard of even in.
It's a state adjacent to Assam.
Okay. Northeastern region of.
Between northeastern and central, yeah.
Okay.
India, yeah.
Then we had an animation called This Is TMI about a certain woman's parts, which was very cute. We had Bobby Beauty Parlor, which is again about two young girls on the eve of one of them leaving for university. We had Stitched, which was kind of like a horror-y, I would say.
Frankenstein.
Yeah, Frankenstein horror-y, about a woman who's trying to find her perfect man. We had Kasbi, Kasbi. This is an encounter between an older woman looking for love in an interesting place. And the final one was Chakras For Sale, which was kind of like a 1960s throwback about a band who are kind of like the Beatles, but they're Indian and they're trying to find their fame. So those were the 6 movies as part of the shorts program. Joe, what stood out to you? What were some things you loved? And
can I just say, fabulous job. That brought memories back flooding.
Oh, good.
Each one of those little shorts. And
okay.
I feel like we ought to just speak through each one because I don't want to shortchange any of the filmmakers here. There's a lot of talent on show.
Yes.
To get a movie made, even a short, is a hell of an accomplishment, and I think all of them deserve some kind of exposure here. So let's just start from the top. I mean, Our Day on a Sunday. There's not a lot that kind of happens in this movie, but it's so well judged and authentic, and its sense of place and its world and the world in which this family live it's just well done. It's the kind of thing that I think could easily be overdone with excess dialogue, with too much kind of too many kind of elements. Instead, we are taken and transported to a world of play, ostensibly with these young boys, of exploration, and it's kind of like a micro coming of age for a 9-year-old boy, not in a sexual revelation way, but in a kind of a little bit of growing up that gets done in a short period of time. I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. It has a very specific sense of place because it's set in this state which doesn't, frankly, get much cinema done at all. So I'm glad that I got to see a part of India that I haven't seen before. And the 2 boys are just adorable. It's hard to do little kids in movies. And these 2 were so believable as 2 naughty boys who get away and try to have some alcohol and smoke some cigarettes. And it kind of... Everybody means well, although it does kind of make commentaries about alcoholic fathers and, people tied up into traditional family structures that you may not be able to get out of. So considering the economy of it, I think it's quite an accomplishment that it does all of these things.
Absolutely agree with everything you guys have said. In 17 minutes, we are transported to a different place and back to our youth. This is about the folly of youth. This was beautifully judged. And the cinematography was absolutely fantastic.
Yes,
I want to go and visit this place for real. So beautiful. Great work. Okay, next one was TMI. This is TMI. It's an animation. What did you guys think of this, Yazdi?
You go first, Yazdi.
It's an animation about boobs, and it's a really smart. It's really smart. It was also shown at the Toronto International Film Festival, where I could be mistaken, it won some prize or not. But it's essentially about their recorded conversation, very honest and frank conversations that young Indian girls are having about their breasts and how the world perceives them. And they have overlaid animation to match the conversations they're having. So it's very, very clever. It's kind of very honest and frank. It made me smile the whole time through. Kudos to them to kind of take this and kind of almost make a collage kind of piece out of it. I really enjoyed it. It's so nobody can watch this without a smile on their face.
Yeah, I love the mixed media in here. There's some animation, there's traditional animation, there's collage, there's stop motion capture. This is what women talk like. This is not just young girls. We all talk about this and we all want to talk about this. And I love Girls Being Girls, or many of the other movies that we mentioned in our first podcast. This is bringing to light conversations that Indian people just don't have in public. So I love that it's just highlighting different areas of, things that we don't normally talk about or hear about. So love this. Love. It's 7 minutes. It's so efficient.
Yeah. Not much to add, really. I mean, it was very funny, very frank, bold conversations. I'm kind of glad that the camera was maybe turned away from these people, because it got from them a conversation that they may have had difficulty actually having in front of a camera. Instead, they're somewhat anonymous in all of this, and that enables them to be truthful. And so the truth brought some things to the surface, and the animation played along really well. I mean, the audience had a good time with this. There was really some big belly laughs there. And then towards the end, they used a little bit of a shock visual, but I think that shock visual was effective. Yeah. So
I was watching the older Indian man in the front row, wiggling in his seat a little bit uncomfortably.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a cultural element to this where I think that's what they were trying to do. I think outside of the community, it's not necessarily so shocking. This is how girls talk, but within the community, I think it starts to open eyes and maybe open up dialogue within homes and families.
Okay, next one was this one. I was surprised when I saw this one's produced by Anurag Kashyap, which always excites me. I think he's an incredible filmmaker. Bobby Beauty Parlor. What did you guys think of this one? Go, Yazdi.
I really enjoyed it. It gets a lot done, again, in a very short period of time.
18 minutes.
18 time. It's really, really funny initially. Great dialogue, very lived-in dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately about friendships. And it's about, again, we don't see this often, like very heartfelt, genuine, friendship between two girls. And, how there is so much of love and there's so much of jealousy and so much of ache, with these kind of early formative friendships that you have and that you're blessed with in your early life. So I think again, in such a short period of time, it got a lot accomplished. Again, great. Most of it is shot in this, very weird 80s-ish beauty parlor. And it's very, very well done. And the acting is impeccable from the two girls. They're excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I think the performances were real standouts here. I think they had me believe in their little world very, very quickly. And yeah, it was a beautiful, believable portrait of a friendship ahead of, one of them having a change in life and potentially separating. And all of the emotions that go along with that, the good and the bad, were brought out in a very efficient, effective manner. I felt like this had been, this felt like a feature-length narrative. I knew these people, who they were, and what the nature of their relationship was. So, yeah, bravo.
Yep, nothing more to add. I think I can't wait to see these actresses do more work.
Yes,
and I would absolutely pay a full ticket to watch a full-length movie of this. So, well done, Shashwat Dwivedi, who is the screenwriter, lyricist, and filmmaker, written and directed. So fantastic work. Okay, next was Stitched. Joe, what did you think of Stitched?
It's good. I mean, of all the shorts that we saw, this was perhaps the most ambitious in terms of what it was trying to do, with probably a very limited budget and a very limited runtime. So, it starts off, with kind of one of those, dating scenarios, and some speed dating, and very quickly establishes that this girl is looking for her perfect man, which is would and could only be a combination of several people, and so she sets about creating that, whether that's done in her head metaphorically, or whether this movie is trying to play out as something more macabre, where she's really harvesting body parts and stitching them together. But look, its ambition is admirable. I mean, this is a story that I think should take longer to tell. So it works. Again, I think if you kind of set aside the slightly rough around the edges makeup, I think there's a suspension of disbelief that I had to, kind of work on there. But it was fun, well crafted. I liked what they were what they were attempting here, and there's some talent on show for future.
Yazdi?
Yeah, what Joe said. It's very ambitious, but it's also kind of a piffle. It's kind of silly and it's goofy, and I smiled through the whole thing. Even the parts which didn't work were kind of charming. Yeah, I have goodwill towards it.
Same. Yeah, I can't say anything bad about this one. It was kind of cutesy and fun and comedic. And it was, again, I could totally see a full-length movie of this in some universe.
Actress
is the screenwriter, and it was directed by another person called Lorenzo Lorenco.
Okay, well, she did a wonderful job.
She did a great job
pulling us into her.
Yeah, she read a little bit like the Never Will I Ever actress to me.
She had a comedic tone.
Very good comedic timing.
Yeah.
But I like that also it was about a weirdo, right? Somebody who doesn't fit in.
Yeah,
in Indian culture. So I like that.
Yeah. All right. Not last one.
Two more.
Penultimate one. Kasbi. What did you think of this? Joe, why don't you go first? This is the one about the older lady arriving in a hotel room.
Yeah, no, this was a kind of a much more serious tone than any of the others that we've discussed so far. Look, I mean, it is such a brave little movie, both for the actors involved, the writer-director, to kind of talk about this kind of thing. I mean, look, this is a brave thing to talk about, and it's probably not spoken about within Western cultures at all. Within an Indian culture, I think this is definitely a taboo kind of topic. But yeah, look, I mean, this is a compact movie. I think it gets its job done very well. I'm being deliberately vague because I think it's important. I think it was important for me to kind of not have any expectations around what this story was about when we first kind of enter the dialogue. There's kind of a little bit of an unraveling I had to do mentally as to what was actually happening here, and I think that played to the movie's benefit. But I applaud it for its bravery. I think the performances were very solid throughout, and it probably didn't resolve as completely as I would have liked. It was kind of a victim of the fact that it was a short. But that speaks to its accomplishment. I wanted more.
Yeah, it's 12 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I like. It's probably the most serious of all the movies, and I like the subject matter because it's going to make all the old Indian aunties and uncles, particularly the aunties, very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and any little short which can do that is great. I love that somebody kind of said this too has a place, and this story also needs to be told, and it's about the things you repress and the things you kind of hold on to and the things you reach out to later in life and so forth. So it has a lot of themes that it's reaching for, and it never feels superficial or trite or like it's doing lip service to any of the topics it's covering. It always felt very heartfelt and real and raw, and considering the short length of it, for me, it's probably the most accomplished of the lot in terms of just subject matter.
Yeah, agree. The two leads, Anna Kaja and Zena Luhechi, phenomenal actresses. I want to see more of these actresses again.
Yes.
And again, this reminded me a lot of that movie, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand, from 2 years ago, the Emma Thompson movie.
That's a good point.
It kind of reminded me of that. A little different, obviously. Again, all of these movies that we've talked about so far, what they've accomplished in less than 20 minutes is incredible. Every single one of these. So yeah, good work here. Okay. And the final one was
Chakras For Sale.
Chakras For Sale. So Yazdi, why don't you start us off on this one?
This was probably my least favorite of all of the shorts in the second package, but it's only because its humor is really, really broad. And, my taste for humor tends to run more specific, and this kind of very broad humor doesn't always sit well with me. But it's a good effort. It's trying to be tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of playing up with a lot of Indian stereotypes, which I'm going to be generous and embrace them, even though some of them could be considered maybe offensive. But still, it has a good heart. It's fine.
Joe.
Yeah, look, I mean, I admire anyone that's able to get any kind of film made here, and I think I don't want to sound overly critical, but if I was a producer here, I would have interest in this material, but I would say one more rewrite. There's some really good ideas at play here, right? In terms of young boys, Indian music, rock music, that don't quite pull off what they were going for, at least in my view. And again, I don't want that to sound harshly critical. I want that to sound mildly critical, because again, I think what they were going for has genuine merit here. I think they were just slightly off the mark. So the humor in it didn't quite work for me. But there's like huge effort here, and I think all of the leads here, I think, worked really hard with material. It just felt a little underwritten.
I would say, unfortunately, this movie had not only the curse of going last, but it had the curse of going last when everything before it that we'd seen was so exceptional. So again, I would say production was completely off on this. I did not believe that this was 1966 for even 1 second. And it felt more like an amateur film school project than something substantial that we could kind of hang our hats on. So again, this is more like a Saturday Night Live skit to me. So it's a little bit misjudged in terms of its humor, in its production, in its editing. It went on too long. It was 20 minutes. It's the longest movie. It should have been at least 12 minutes shorter. So again, it's more like a skit than a real movie. So unfortunately, no chakras for sale, and this one needs cleansing. Okay, that concludes the shorts. We will quickly go over the docu-series. So this was a 3-episode docu-series called Defiance, Fighting the Right, and we got to see episodes 1 and 3 of this docu-series. Yazdi, what did you think of this?
I think this is marvelous, and I think...
and sorry, we should say what it's about. It's a docu-series about a specific time in the UK, specifically in West London, an area called Southall, which became quite ghettoized, where many of the Indian population arrived from the colonies as they were no longer colonies. And this is a specific period in time from June 1976 to about 1981. And I have to point out that my family actually did live in Southall from the time I was born until 1976. So, Joe or Yazdi, go ahead.
So it's clearly about immigration and about racism and about, perception, wide perception, which is relevant even today, that immigrants are the problem, and that all of the problem that a country faces is because of the immigrant. And it speaks to, pretty much history repeating itself in terms of what's happening right now in the immigration debate. Not to get too political, but it's only this all happened in the early 70s, where there were riots and where, people of Asian, the Indians at that time were considered equivalent to blacks, right? They were considered blacks. And then there was this, there was an attempt to kind of put certain people into jail for having been caught with certain things. And so it's a very complicated political history of London and specific parts of London at that period in time. But I think it resonates so much because for me, I constantly saw, analogies to what's happening right now. This easy, target of just blaming the immigrants for everything that you perceive as being wrong with your current society. I really like this for 2 reasons. One is that it's very, very, very meticulously researched. Obviously, it could have been just talking heads, but it's not. It's a lot of archival footage and a lot of, placards, and obviously somebody's done a lot of hard work. That's one thing. The other reason, and even greater reason why I really like this, is because, you're told that documentaries have to be totally objective, which I think is nonsense. If you're doing a political documentary, take a stand. And this movie, the stand they take is in the title. The subtitle says "Fighting the Far Right," and this is a very angry documentary. It's very clear that the documentary thinks very poorly or is condemning the actions that happen at that point. And I love the fact that they're not trying to be, there were good people on both sides kind of nonsense. It's really taking the stand that a wrong happened that hopefully should not happen again. So I really like that particular perspective of it.
Joe.
You look, yeah, this brought back a lot of memories. There's I didn't live in London at the time, but I was in the UK, and this was very much a good reflection of that late 70s, early 80s Britain, which was struggling. There was a lot of immigration happening at the time, and the country didn't understand how that was going to change things. And so ultimately we ended up with a flashpoint here. And to Yazdi's point, a huge wrong was committed here. And the country's response seemed to be, whitewashing / victim blaming / all of this, there were just murders that weren't properly investigated. This really opened my eyes to really what was happening at the time. I kind of knew it, but as a young child, in that period of time, I think my parents maybe understood a bit more about what was happening politically in the world, and now I understand why they were so fearful of, at times, for me to go out as a young non-white child in a very white, ethnically undiverse area. At any point in time, like they needed to keep a close leash on me. So, this is just a really great retelling, I guess, of some incidents of my age that I certainly don't remember. Yazdi, your point about it being a very angry movie is really the first point that I wanted to make here. I mean, it really is. This is an enraged movie, and a piece of film, rather, because it's angry. It takes it very much from the perspective of the people that felt that they had to do something about what was happening to them at the time. And it's very much kind of a Black Panther type fight violence with violence, right? There comes a point in time where you can't sit there and continue to take the injustices that are happening. And so this film kind of says this is what these people took upon themselves at great peril, I might say, to kind of right the wrongs that were happening within their communities, outside of their communities. So, again, bravo. I wanted more. I did want the wider exploration of some of the political issues, but again, bravo for these filmmakers for kind of staying focused. It seems that they only got a certain length of time to really talk about this, and so they knew which punches they wanted to throw, and I think the documentary is all the better for it.
Yeah, this was a walk down memory lane for me again. My parents lived on the outskirts of this area from the time I was 0 to 6 years old. So it was interesting. And Joe and I were just in England, in London recently. We were walking those streets. So I was kind of like nudging Joe in the elbows and saying, "Oh my God, do you remember where that was?" I think I agree with everything you've said. I think my only criticism of the documentary is that I don't know what it wanted us as the audience to take away from it. I don't feel like it quite made its point. I get that these were people who were wronged, and these were, and then it told the story of the people who stood up, like you said, Joe, this movement of the Southall youth movement, and then subsequently other areas of London youth movements. I love that. I love the kind of David versus Goliath viewpoint of that. I just wish it had kind of put a nice cherry on the top around what is it that you want us to take away from this, that any David and Goliath will prevail, or if you follow this formula, you can beat the right, or I wish that, and to be fair, I wish that they had managed to maybe even track down some of the skinheads who were doing the attacking or the alleged attacking, and maybe even had the story from their perspective a little bit. I think that would have been a more balanced overall docuseries. But overall, I think it was great. It was a great story to tell. And again, Yazdi, to your point, I love the fact that this is 40 something years ago, and it's happening now again. So I love it for that. But again, I would love if there was a little nugget of, well, here's what you can do, or here's how to put it right, or this is what we learned from this. Oh, that's my only concession on it.
The only other thing I would say is that my sense is that if somebody tried to take a stand on this or take a position of this at the time that this actually transpired, then they would be accused of, taking a political side. And I think one of the good things of reevaluating this from the distance of several decades, as you have some objectivity now where you can categorically say, no, these people were wrong, and these people were set up, and these people were forcibly imprisoned. Whereas in the moment, people could be, they lose the judgment.
Yeah. So and I did like it had the one police officer who hadn't changed his mind. And I think that was marvelous to see that, despite 40 years passing, he still didn't have another viewpoint on it. That's great to see that. That's also documentary.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
First time at IFFLA that they felt compelled to actually include a television episodes packaged as a movie. They haven't done that before.
Yes. And again, what an incredible festival.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll echo what we said before. This is a wonderful film festival. Just go check out the website, indianfilmfestival.org. Look at the movies that are showcased there. If you can find them in any way that you in any shape or form. There's some of these will get releases. Do check out our podcast that we had before, and we will do our best to kind of champion these should they receive distribution to refer you back to these episodes.
One final thing, they've announced the winners for the film festival, and the movie in the previous episode that we all loved so much won the top prize, and the movie is Girls Will Be Girls,
which we loved all the movies, but I think the two of you loved that movie. Loved it.
And I can't wait for that movie to get distribution.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we do have a place to be now. So thank you once again for listening and watching. Hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. Bravo to all of the people who organized IFFLA. Thank you for everything that you do.
Yep.
We were privileged to be part of it again this year, and we are privileged to hopefully to be part of it again next year. Thank you to all the volunteers and to all the filmmakers. Really, what a great time. It's like my favorite little holiday.
Yeah, it really is.
All right. Let's wrap up for today. Too many movies, too little time. A goodbye from me.
And me.
And me as well.